We've got another great story to share with you today, an inspiring journey into local government leadership, because that's what we do here on the Halting Winter Podcast. We tell the stories behind the titles, the unique paths into public service, and the moments that shape how these leaders show up, even when the work gets heavy. Every day, local government quietly makes modern life possible, and behind every service is a person doing work that often goes unseen. This is the Halting Winter Podcast, and I'm Seth Winterhalter. Every week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with local government leaders from across the country that remind us where government really lives, locally, doing the work that truly matters. This is the work that builds belonging. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Tyler Technologies has been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998, partnering with cities and counties to make their work more manageable, more connected, and more effective. From smarter budgeting to artificial intelligence, Tyler equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore a variety of free resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if today's conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you to check out the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. It's a global community of local government leaders who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of municipal pressure. You can learn more about the MLDC at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. And now, let's turn to today's conversation. My guest on the podcast today is Benjamin Marentette, City Manager in Traverse City, Michigan. Benjamin, welcome to the podcast. What a pleasure it is to have you on today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Well, I had the privilege of really this random moment. I was out in Michigan speaking for the county administrative officers for their annual conference, and I flew in and out of Traverse City. And when I was flying out, I had some time, so I dropped by City Hall and said, "Hey, I'm this crazy podcast host. Does the city manager have 5 minutes?" You graciously gave that to me, and I knew the moment I shook hands with you that you have a unique energy, a unique and I got excited. There's just people I get a vibe with, and I go, this guy's up to great things. I can feel it. And even just driving around Traverse City, again, this is northern Michigan, and it's talk about beautiful. That I don't know what the street is right by the water, and you just look up and it's just, man, okay, this is cool. There's something happening here. And I wanted to learn more about obviously you and what's going on in Traverse City. And so that's what we're going to do today, unpack that. But before we get to Traverse City and really a really cool career you've had, some cool things I think to dive in on and encourage both young people who might be interested in getting into local gov, but also those aspiring to leadership, and maybe some cool insights on how to not only get there, but how to get there and stay educated, but also connected with people. I think there's going to be some great things, but let's do what we do. Let's go back to the very beginning. Tell us about where you were born and kind of the childhood that shaped you.
Sure. So I was born in Traverse City at Munson Medical Center, which is our local hospital. And I grew up about 20 miles south of TC. That's what we call Traverse City, TC. And I grew up in a little town called Kingsley, Michigan. And my high school graduating class had about 75. So you knew everybody in your class. You knew where they lived. You knew their parents. It was really a remarkable place to grow up. My dad, who is no longer with us, had a tremendous work ethic and owned his own electrical contracting company and just showed the power and value of working hard. He always treated people well and cared about the person more than, just making a lot of money. And so he had a very generous heart. I have two sisters, one who now lives in Alaska and one that lives not far from here. And anyway, I am still very close with my friend, John Boonstra, who we've known each other since we were 14 days old, just 2 weeks. We grew up in the same community. He now lives in Traverse City, and I've stayed in touch with a lot of folks from school. And particularly when I got into this job, I heard from my preschool teacher, my kindergarten teacher, my third grade teacher, sixth grade high school teachers, and college professors who have really been amazing that they even still remember me as one of many students that they had. And so it was a really great place to grow up.
I love this. So Kinsley, again, I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere. I think today still it has like 99 residents, right? Just farm town, America. But when you're growing up, is there any awareness of local gov? Did that town even have, elected or probably not even a city manager administrator?
No, I grew up in a small township called Paradise Township, a good name. It was a beautiful place. But the Kingsley Village, had the village government. And I remember as a young child going with my mom into the voting booth when she would cast her ballot. These are those voting booths where you'd pull a lever and the curtain would close or open. And I remember it feeling like a sacred, important thing that I was kind of lucky to get to be there. But other than that, local government was never on my radar. I always enjoyed as a kid, definitely a nerd, watching the news. I paid attention to federal government and a little bit state, but never really thought about local government at all growing up.
And so what were you interested in? What did you think the trajectory looked like? Especially, and maybe even talk about, because what's interesting is your dad, you said, again, entrepreneur, the owner of this small business. The hours of small business are insane, right? I mean, you're kind of on the clock, especially I would imagine electrical, like there's probably emergencies and that there's things there that people's real lives, like these are the things that function, AC and heat and et cetera. What were you interested in growing up? What did you think your trajectory hold? And what was it like growing up in that unique environment?
That's a great question. I don't know where this came from, but I always saw myself running a large organization. So I wanted to be a CEO in a leadership role, in a professional role. And I thought that I would work in business. And I always had it in my plans to go to University of Michigan and get an MBA there. I mean, as a probably ever since I was 12 or 13, I'm like, I need to get an MBA. I want to run a company. My dad had a small business and he did very well with it. He was very, like I had said, kind and generous. But I also often saw opportunities to innovate and really grow the company and its professionalism and able to have impact, that he just wanted to keep it small, which I understand. And I was like, I want to grow this thing. And so that, in my mind, that's where I wanted to be. And it's kind of interesting that I sort of fell into local government when I was in between high school and starting college. My oldest sister was going to apply for a job with Grand Traverse County, which is the county in which Traverse City is located. And she asked me if I would help her write her cover letter and resume and all this. And I did that. And as I was writing it, I thought, oh, that'd be kind of an interesting job. Do you mind if I apply for it too? And I did. I swear I didn't sabotage her resume that I was writing to get myself the job, but I got it at the age of 18 and then quickly moved over to the city of Traverse City and just thinking, I'm going to just do this for a little while. And one thing led to another. And I had that city clerk that hired me at one point early on in my career with Traverse City was just a tremendous mentor. And as time went on, I realized this is where I want to be. I love how local government can just do really good things in people's lives on an everyday basis, and that it's a necessary part of how folks function. So what an honor to be able to work in that public trust. And so you fast forward to today, and it's kind of interesting that I had that idea of being a CEO. Then I fell in love with local government, and now I'm basically in the CEO role for local government and for this city that I just love so much. I care a lot about this place, and so it's really pretty, to me, it's humbling and remarkable that I get to be here and that sort of everything came together in a way that sort of honors those initial professional ambitions I had, but in this public service sort of way.
One thing I've learned from hosting hundreds of conversations with local government leaders is this: the challenges never stop changing. So many conversations seem to come back to the same question. How do you keep moving your community forward when there's never enough time, money, people, or certainty? You're always looking for ways to work smarter, make better decisions with limited resources, and prepare for what's coming next, all while still delivering the services your residents count on every day. That is why I'm grateful for partners like Tyler Technologies. Tyler has put together 3 free ebooks specifically for local government leaders that I think are well worth your time. One explores how your team can use AI to eliminate repetitive work and improve your efficiency. Another highlights how cloud technology can help modernize your operations. And the third focuses on how your organization can remain resilient, even when things don't go according to plan. You can download all 3 ebooks for free, along with several other resources, all at tylertech.com/winter. Again, tylertech.com/winter. And if you're going to be attending the NACO annual conference, it's in New Orleans this July, stop by booth number 231 and connect with the Tyler team. They would love to learn more about your community and the unique challenges that you are facing. While you're there, if you'd like to see how AI is being used in an actual government setting, make sure to attend the Technology Innovation Forum. It's featuring Fulton County and Tyler Technologies. You're going to hear how they are putting these tools to work in their day-to-day operations and what they're learning along the way. To learn more about AI that works to make your county or your city government far more efficient, visit tylertech.com/winter. Now, let's get back to the conversation. I love this. And I think hopefully, not only this podcast, but some work I want to do is get into some colleges and even some high schools and talk about this, because I think just like you, I was the same way. I thought business. I thought, my dad, and it's kind of the environment maybe we were raised in was very like, go be a C-suite. That's the end up goal. Be an executive in a C-suite. And so that's where I, thought my trajectory would be, but it just does not. And again, we need C-suite, we need public or private sector, but I think there are many people wired for missional work that connects to people. And it's hard then in the private sector where it's so focused on product and widgets and that kind of competition, which can be, it's great. But there could be some people that go, man, maybe they're in that. They finally got to the C-suite and they go, there's a disconnect here. And that's why I think local gov, people just don't know. They think politics, they think state and federal and policy and not really, impacting people in some massive general way. Whereas local gov, every day people are reliant on you for basic services, water, sewer, trash pickup, roads, streets to get to work, but also the above ground things, which we'll dive into in Traverse City, like the festivals, the libraries, the parks, like the things that actually make people actually come together. That's local gov.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You don't really see on TV too many shows that are about local government, right? So I think we tend to focus, if you're even thinking of public service as a kid, maybe you tend to focus on state or federal because that's what you see on TV more, news and in shows or movies.
So true.
Yeah.
Go back, because this is interesting. I love these unique stories where it's like local gov's not even on your radar, and here's your sister, needs some help doing a resume, and you're like, what is this? And then you end up. Yeah. So talk to us about, because this is before you go to Spring Arbor University.
Mm-hmm. This was before. Yeah. Before I went to any higher education, I attended Northwest. I took a gap year between graduating high school and starting higher education studies. And I went to Northwestern Michigan College, based here in Traverse City, for the first couple of years. And then I attended Spring Arbor University. And by the time I was at Spring Arbor to get my bachelor's degree, I knew that local government was where I wanted to be. So, and yet I still, in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to ultimately pursue an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration, because I think that there's a lot of value and good lessons in how to optimize government services, thinking through a business type lens, recognizing it is not a business. It's not the same, but sort of that structured approach to accountability and efficiency and those types of things that shareholder run and owned organizations tend to ensure that they're embracing, and that those same principles, a lot of them can apply to efficiently and honorably running government agencies. And so I ultimately ended up getting an MBA, and I did all of that all while working for the city. The city was great and paid for a lot of my education. And And as recently as 2017, I began a 6-year public leadership program at Harvard's Kennedy School, which was a tremendous life-changing experience.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, and I want to get to that Harvard Kennedy School, because not only is it the reality that, we can think, oh, my undergrad, I got the master's, now I'm good. Now I'm credentialed up. Now I can go get the job. I love highlighting the leaders. I think the leaders I interview that are continuing to excel still have a priority for learning. And not only the learning aspect, but the networking aspect. And I think that's the unique thing about the work that you're in, is you're the only city manager in Traverse City. You don't get to go to a Chamber of Commerce luncheon or somewhere and kind of rub shoulders and, vent, empathize, but also get some fresh ideas. You've got to be a part of these bigger, the state associations, the ICMA, clerk, whatever it is. But also, I think the Harvard School and some of these others, I know the Kellogg, there's a couple other big ones that do these kind of certificates. But this sounds great. Let's dive into it. The Harvard, you said 6-year program. I know there's some. In fact, you did a senior executive in state and local government program. I think a certificate. Is that the same program? Was that the beginning of it, or was that something else?
It was the beginning of it. So I was accepted in 2017 into their Senior Executives and State and Local Government Fellowship program. And I did that. That was incredible. I loved the way that at the Kennedy School, they blend theory with practice and have you read through these real life case studies and do what they call autopsies, really deep dives with fellows in the program. And I got to meet some incredible humans from around the world that I'm still in touch with. And then I decided that I wanted to pursue their public leadership credential, which built on that fellowship through the Senior Executives and State and Local Government program. And once again, was supported in doing that by the city, the organization that I work for. And this is really pretty, at this time, I wasn't the city manager. I was one of the folks with probably the most modest professional backgrounds in the room. And I decided to pursue that credential with an emphasis on strategic leadership and negotiations. My MBA is a concentration in finance and leadership, and I wanted to build on that. And it's just been an incredible experience. And the alumni community is just rich with really high quality humans that it's that network, as you mentioned, where you can lean on that and honestly have thought partners and think like it's your first day on the job sometimes, with the benefit of having more experience than the first day.
I love this because you're Spring Arbor University. You get an undergrad in organizational development and management. Lawrence Technological University, a master's of business administration, finance, and leadership. Again, you've already said, it sounds like this is very kind of private sector-esque, like again, C-suite, like you're going to go do that thing. And yet, you're focused now. You kind of know local government's going to be my jam. I want to talk about the specific areas that you've kind of worked in your career. But before we do that, just to encourage, again, someone who's out there who maybe is in school and is doing kind of more of the MBA and like has never thought about local gov. I think we tend to get in our heads and disqualify ourselves, or we kind of close off paths and go, well, I don't have an MPA, so, and I don't want to start, gosh, now I can't do it. Or, whatever it is. And your story is I think, worth highlighting to go, hey, it doesn't matter. Like all these paths, there's so many paths into local gov, and there's so many paths once you're into local gov to continue learning and training. I think that's one of the things, like this Harvard School, again, you're not the city. You didn't get that when you became the city manager. You did that before. And how cool that it prepared you, and I'm sure gave you the confidence to be able to be like, oh, here's this opportunity. Yeah, let's rock and roll. It's just the forward momentum of your trajectory. So walk us through from that first job in the county. What did you do in the county? And then walk us up to you become the executive director of this unique recreational authority. Walk us up to that.
Sure. So the job at Grand Traverse County was a front desk position at our local corrections facility, so the jail. And I was essentially their clerical person. So I sat at the front counter with, bulletproof glass and the buttons that allow visitors into a certain part of the jail until there's appropriate security screening and all that. But I provided all the clerical support to all of the jail staff. I was the customer service point of contact for people who had loved ones or clients or associates that were currently incarcerated. And I was their point of contact. And it was an incredible experience. I will honestly say that growing up in Little Kingsley, Michigan, I had this preconceived idea that anybody in jail is a bad person. And that was just incredible to learn at the age of 18, have that mindset completely flipped and realizing that a lot of the folks that are incarcerated are great human beings. They've just had some circumstances that haven't been ideal. Of course, there's some that are in there that are just, not great people. But it was an incredible experience. I was working largely with people who were 2-3 times my age, because mind you, I was 18 at the time, and there were people in their 60s working there. And I got so much out of that. I would say that almost everyone that worked there was wonderful. 2 of the roughly 35 corrections officers got in all the fights with the inmates. And I remember highlighting that, wondering if I'm stepping on toes, but highlighting that to the jail administrator that, why is it that these 2 officers are the ones that get in all the fights? And it's not because they're the only 2 working in the really difficult part of the jail, right? It was just like clearly something there. And I was respected for raising those concerns. And that was really encouraging to me. But I'll be honest with you, as someone who has always had a really positive mindset, I found that working in the jail for me was not a positive environment. It's not saying anything about the coworkers. It was just a lot of negativity surrounding you. And so I decided to go work for the city as a customer service rep in the treasurer's office, which is one of the most entry-level positions we have in the organization. And then fast forward a little bit, I got a job offer in the city clerk's office, which is where I really started to realize government is where I want to be, local government. And I had a boss there that was super encouraging. And our city manager at the time, who was like a mentor to me, I consider him like a father figure today, Richard Lewis, was longtime city manager, had been instrumental in getting this Traverse City and Garfield Township Recreational Authority off the ground. And as he announced his resignation after serving here for 17 years, later went on to become one of our mayors, encouraged me to take over that executive director role. And I do it in sort of air quotes because it wasn't, I was working for the city as the deputy city clerk at the time, but the recreational authority needed somebody to function in that executive director capacity. And so the board unanimously appointed me to that role. I served in that role concurrently while serving as deputy city clerk because I just had all of this drive and energy and capacity to contribute. So I was sort of doing 2 full-time jobs at once and got to serve in that capacity during some really formative stages of that organization. So we built this capital campaign to totally bring a new life to the historic Barnes Park, which is was a working farm for a psychiatric hospital for about 100 years and had been closed for about 20. And now fast forward to today, it's a thriving 50+ acre park with a botanic garden that is just absolutely a gem. The cathedral barn and now historic barn have been repurposed and are open for educational and collaborative meeting, gathering places. We've got a community garden up there. I mean, that was just an incredible thing to be involved in. And I just got so much out of it. I learned a lot about myself in a leadership capacity. And got to fail forward in a lot of ways and learn some lessons without as big a consequences because it was a relatively modest operation, but taught me a lot. And I got a lot out of it and gave a lot in return too.
I have this unique pleasure, this unique opportunity to meet with thousands of local government leaders from across the nation every year through conferences and workshops and the podcast. Just these interviews, these conversations are just so insightful. And one of the things I have learned about local government leaders is this: the best leaders are lifelong learners, not because they have all the answers. It's because they understand that leadership, that journey of leadership, is never finished. Every challenge, every difficult conversation, every budget season, every organizational change or disruption is another opportunity to grow. That's why this summer we're doing something different inside the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. We're launching a special summer series called Stories That Shape Leaders. You know that every week I take a best-selling book, usually a business book, and we break down its insights and apply them to local gov. This summer, we're taking biographies, memoirs, timeless leadership books that don't necessarily fall into those typical business, culture, strategy kind of genre. And we're going to explore the lives, the decisions, the failures, challenges, the lessons of leaders who navigated incredible adversity, who had to build trust when hope was fleeting, who inspired others not only to dream, but to take action, and who left a lasting impact. Leadership isn't shaped just through strategies and frameworks alone. It is shaped through stories. Stories that challenge assumptions, stories that expand our perspective, stories that help us become the leaders our communities need us to be. When you join the MLDC, you unlock the entire summer series, but you unlock even more. You unlock the weekly leadership content, the live mastermind sessions, the nationwide community of local government leaders, and all the MLDC resources, not just for the summer, but for the rest of 2026. If you are looking for a place to continue growing this summer while connecting with leaders who understand the unique challenges of local government, I would love to invite you to join us. Learn more at haltingwinter.com/MLDC or simply use the link in the show notes. Now, back to the conversation. This is so cool because from my vantage point, as you tell this story, again, deputy city clerk, I love clerks. I think that they do not get the credit that they deserve, so rightly deserve, as the kind of the historians, as the people who make sure that we're operating above board. They connect. Mm-hmm. I was talking to I had someone on the other week. They're in IT, and they were like, "Man, in fact, it was Jeremy Scott. He's one of the county people in Michigan." And he goes, IT touches every department because, everyone needs IT. And I had never thought about that. But someone else, we had a clerk on, and they, who is now city manager, and they said, yeah, city clerks, they touch every department. They're putting the notes together for the packets for, the electeds. And so they're seeing, and again, it's such a unique world. But here's what's cool about your story. You're the deputy city clerk. So you're kind of in that administrative, that paperwork, kind of inside the guts of the organization. And yet you're the executive director of this recreational authority, which is totally the outside, the meeting spaces, the public. What a cool world, that the two hands of kind of the deep internal work of the organization, but the outward impact of really where people meet and of those spaces. Maybe talk about that, because that's really you. Usually you don't get that. You get the parks people who are just gung-ho. I'm about to interview Jennifer Wills. She's our city manager in Longview, Washington out here. If you've heard of the Longview kind of tragedy that just happened with their plant. But she came up through parks, and when you meet her, it is like the ultimate parks person. Like this person, like we got to go hiking while we do the podcast.
Sure.
And so you can kind of, but a city clerk can kind of be so into the weeds that it's very, anyway, I've never heard of someone holding on to those two realities. Talk about how that shaped you and how that gave you kind of a real impact of local gov and the unique impact that it has both internally and externally.
Well, it was wonderful. I mean, I loved being in the city clerk's office. I served as our city clerk here in Traverse City for about 13 years. And you get to touch on so many things, and it's detailed work. There's at times strategy. You're a guardian of process. And I've always been a person who's both detail oriented and very much a visionary type thinker. And so I'm grateful that I have sort of those two lenses that I can look through, because they both have their time and place and advantages. And getting to serve as executive director for the Rec Authority gave me that opportunity to be the board's chief advisor and the CEO, right, of a very small entity, but had big impact and big potential and just huge amount of community collaboration. Something that I really cherish is the human connection and relationships. And I was really able to bring my relationship building skills to the passion of that work that we're aiming to achieve, this collective vision, and bring a lot of very amazing humans with very different ideas about what to use with some of these park spaces together and establish a framework that everyone could put their arms around. And it was unique, fairly cutting edge at the time. And I drive by that park, I walk through it, and I think about all the story. Like, you step on that property, you know that there's a story, so much history there. And then to have been able to be a part of keeping it alive and active and getting, like I said, to be a piece of that was just really, really magical and something that is really humbling for me.
So that recreational authority, it was connected to the city, but it wasn't. Was it a separate 501c3?
It's a separate governmental entity. So it is a Michigan municipal corporation, and it was the city of Traverse City and Garfield Charter Township, which is our adjoining largest township in northern Michigan. And voters of both jurisdictions voted overwhelmingly, like 80% in the city, 70-some% in Garfield Township, to levy a millage to save these properties. And it was a modest millage that then required fundraising and capital campaign and nonprofits working together. But it gave us a framework and an opportunity to preserve that beautiful space and activate it for future generations. And so it was really pretty cool.
I love that. And I love to highlight the partnerships, because local government just can't do it by itself. It's got to have, I like what you said, you could have had a vision and the city could have had a vision and it could have done it, but it wouldn't have really brought, like you said, to get different community voices together and to hear and to get their buy-in, to get them rowing together. I think that's the cool thing about local gov. Sure, it can be a little slower, but the process, that journey, creates these public places that we embody because we are a part of it. And so super cool.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So you do that for a handful of years. You become you're serving as the deputy city clerk at the time. You become the city clerk of Traverse City, and then you become the interim city manager. How does that happen? And when in your career, was that just like shock? Like, was it always kind of city clerk and that's where you thought, or did you kind of have an inkling, I want to maybe look at city management? And give us kind of the feel of your internal journey towards that role.
Sure. Well, for the longest time, I saw myself as city clerk for many, many years, and I respect the work. It's so crucial. And it's such an honor. Like, but one of the key pieces of that work in Michigan is you get to run elections, which is a tremendous opportunity and a gift. And anyway, as time went on, I realized that I wanted to elevate my opportunity for impact. And the idea of being a city manager here was really appealing to me because I love this town. And I wasn't sure exactly when or how that might happen. And in 2023, the City Commission conducted a national search with a recruiting firm. And there were, I think, 77 applicants from many states. The pool of candidates was whittled down to who would interview in person in front of the City Commission. And so the City Commission did interviews. There was public open house. Department head had an interview panel. And I was the only candidate that had unanimous support from the City Commission. I was the only one that had unanimous support from the department head team and the majority of public support through this open house, where anonymous feedback was given to the headhunting firm. City Commission ultimately unanimously offered me the position in 2023. And at the time, I was so excited about it. But once the opportunity was right in front of my face, I sort of had an allergic reaction to it. Like, I just sort of freaked out, to be honest with you. Like, can I do this? I've been such a great city clerk all these years. Can I be a great city manager? And as someone who had been working for a long time to, as I had said earlier, want to elevate my opportunity for impact, pursuing programs like through Kennedy School, doing national election advising work with MIT and secretaries of state. Like, I kept positioning myself, and I turned the position down, and it literally broke my heart. Like, it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. It was very difficult. It was a grieving process, to be honest. I knew it was the right thing to turn it down because I didn't feel ready. But as someone who has, and I say this with humility, formally tested emotional IQ that's off the charts, I was really puzzled. Like, why why am I freaking out now when I've worked so hard to get to this spot? And so I chose to then start working with a therapist and a leadership coach to really do a deep dive, like what's going on here. And ultimately I realized that I mentioned that my dad had tremendous work ethic. He literally died working to death. He's 5 days shy of his 61st birthday, died on a job. And I have seen city managers get eaten alive by the demands of this work. And so I worked with a therapist and a coach to develop boundaries and essentially a framework that I would embrace that would allow me to do this kind of work while also having some balance in my life and really leaning into recognizing the role versus self. And so I was able to do that work. This position came around again almost 2 years later. And I felt absolutely ready, and I have a lot to learn, but I absolutely believe in my ability to contribute at this level, and I have no reservations whatsoever about serving in this capacity. And I am beyond filled with gratitude that the opportunity came up again, and that with a totally different city commission, I once again got unanimous support before this election and then after it for the permanent appointment. And I'm just really like, it's a gift to be able to serve in this capacity.
Benjamin, I knew this podcast episode was going to be great. And you've just done something really special. You've opened up, and I think this is going to be incredibly helpful and inspirational to some, because on two ends. First, again, I think that's the issue, especially in leadership, is you can get into our heads and we can go, man, I'm ready on paper. I'm ready for this. And yet something is holding me back. And that's okay. And you not only listened to that voice, but then you took the steps to help you get clarity. And I love that it tied in. It sounds like it really was a deep dive back. You had to go back to the parenting kind of trauma. And it wasn't like it was the trauma of watching someone you love work themselves to death and going, that's probably my inner makeup too. And like you say,
right. Yeah.
The boundaries, and that's why I talk about the keynote I gave out in Michigan is balance is BS. There is no such thing as work-life balance. There is only intention. Mm-hmm. And if you do not know what you want to give your life to, in America specifically, we just give everything to work because we find so much of our identity there, so much of our value there, so much of our impact there. And I think this is the two-edged sword of local gov, is that it's incredibly missional work, but there is never a dull moment. There is always more to do. And so it can, like you said, eat up city managers, especially the best ones, because they're so filled with passion for people in their community that they will, I always say, you'll sacrifice yourself on the altar of that service. And so what a gift that you've shared that process. And then again, once you really did the boundary work to say, okay, how do I stay Benjamin and not just become city manager of Traverse City? Right. How do I do that? Then the opportunity is there, and now you're in it. And that doesn't mean it's perfect, but you have an awareness. Now, maybe talk about that, because I'm sure once you become the city manager, we might have an idea of what that role is. We might have aspirations, but once you get it, it's such a different world. Tell us about what this last year has been like as you've been in that role. How have those boundaries been tested? How have you worked through some of that so that you have a personal life, you have a relational life, and then you have your professional life?
Yeah. So when I began in this job, just a few days after I started, we had a horrific mass stabbing incident. And that was terrible. I was drinking from the fire hose. So even though I lived here and I've worked in this organization for a long time, I would say that it took about 10 months to be in this role before I felt like I could finally come up for some air. And so we had that stabbing incident. Then we had a tragic murder of one of our employees and shooting at some of our police officers. And then we had an officer involved shooting where they ended up taking a life of someone who was charging at them with a weapon. And I say all this because in the midst of that, I'm working on organizational transformation, changing our organizational culture, reframing the way that we intentionally build our budget, embracing our city's first ever strategic action plan, translating that into objectives and key results where you're measuring actual progress, not just activity, all of these things. And yet I still took my vacations. And I will be honest with you that I had my first 1-year evaluation, and it was very affirming. Lots of great affirming feedback from all the department heads and the city commission members. And yet there was some really good critical feedback in there too, because we can always grow, and feedback is a gift. One piece of feedback that I do not embrace was maybe not taking so many 2-week vacations. And I don't embrace that because frankly, in order to stay in the game and to stay sane, frankly, and to stay fresh and listening with the capacity to be changed, you got to have time away. And I approved a very progressive, flexible workplace policy for this organization to try to allow folks to lean into intentionally spending their life and their time. And I will give a ton of myself to this place, but I'm not going to give everything to it, because if I do, everything's going to suffer. The community, because I won't be working as well, serving and with such a clear, healthy mind. And also personally, I will suffer. And so I am holding fast to those boundaries, and I'm being true to myself.
I love that. And you have to be, right? And I think that's where it's helping people. We so default to, well, but I can see you in the office from 9 to 5 or from whatever to whatever. It's like we're all looking for assurances of the framework, but we don't often look at the actual results. And it's like, guys, we got to keep people healthy. Look at what we've done. Look at the work, and look at like you said, even what's so interesting is back to the jail, where you were kind of this customer service person in an area where customer service, probably no one who had served that role before is like, I get to be customer service of a jail. But I just know just the vibe I get from you. And in fact, I was going to highlight this. When I came in to City Hall in Traverse City, a month or two ago, I felt that vibe. I felt like from your staff, the way it just like, this is a cool place to work, and even interacting with you.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the culture that you set. And is that just a natural, just your cool personality, or what intentionality have you given that to the organization, specifically now as a city manager? Because it's one of the things I talk about, or I think I've noticed from some of the best city managers, is they spend an inordinate amount of time with culture and making sure that people feel seen and valued. I think the temptation of a city manager is, I got to be the one with all the answers. And the best ones go, I hire great people to do that. I'm here to be the chief culture officer to make sure people love showing up to work. They love being missional, because again, local government's not getting parades thrown because the streets were paved and the potholes filled. They don't get noticed a lot. So I think the internal organization has to see people, reward people, make sure that they feel the missional impact. What does that look like for you with culture? What does that look like for you?
You've frozen.
Oh, sorry. What does that look? How have you now in the chair for a year now? What does that look like to embody that, to create that culture, to continue to foster that culture?
Yeah, well, I've always been a person that thinks in terms of possibilities, a leadership mindset, learning mindset. And I have said since I started in this role that I wanted Traverse City to be an organization that is firmly rooted in a culture of feedback. And what I mean by that is that regardless of rank, agency, department, spot on the city sphere, that your ideas matter. And that we need to, again, think of feedback as a gift, clarity as kindness. And so when people let you know where they're at, lean into that as a gift and an opportunity to serve them in the way that they're really needing. And so I have been, honestly, we approved a flexible workplace policy for employees that whose positions are conducive to that. I've been working to celebrate the wins of our employees at all levels of the organization. I'm told that I'm the first city manager in our city's history that has gone around and met every single city employee. I did it in small groups, but starting to really create this vibe of where everyone matters. And we're soon going to have brand signage around our different campuses that say, we're glad you're here. And that is important for not just the employees, the folks that we serve, that we're happy that we had the honor of serving you, whether you're an internal customer or an external one. And so it's really just, I've been encouraging thinking in terms of possibilities, offering up a menu of options. It's not always the cheapest thing, is that money isn't always our guide. Sometimes it's a bigger value that needs to drive the decision, and we need to think in terms of options. And so it's been really rewarding to hear feedback that the culture has shifted in such a way at a pace that a lot of people didn't think could be possible, including me. But it's taking hold, and it's really, really like super rewarding.
It seems like, I don't know if you've read the book Unreasonable Hospitality.
No.
I can't think of the name now, but it's the story of this famous restaurant in New York that goes from kind of middling, and in this fantastic space in New York City, but just kind of a middling restaurant to the number one restaurant in the world. And Will Guiadara, he's the author. But it sounds like it's that customer service. In fact, Christopher Gilbert, he's the city manager in Springfield Township, Ohio, and he just totally has changed the culture by embodying this customer service. It's experiential. Like, we're glad you're here. We're glad we have the opportunity to serve you and connect with you. And we, and that's not what local gov's kind of known for. It's like, you go, if you got to go engage with local gov, if you're a resident, it's kind of a pain in the butt. And so how could it's, what do we know? It's Zootopia, when it's the DMV, it's like the slow, that's what we think about when we have to go kind of engage with local gov. It shouldn't be that way. It doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
But we've got to embody that.
Yeah.
We got to make it awesome internally, so people feel like I matter in these. I love that you're doing that too. You're going down to the lowest kind of, positions on the totem pole and going, but you're the driver. You are connecting with people. So, don't find your value in just the titles and the positions. Find your value in what you get to do and bring to the table. I love that you're highlighting that. And oh man, I could talk to you forever. Yeah. So many cool things.
That's great. Yeah. I've always said that, when I was in the city clerk's office too, that, a lot of folks may interact with us just once or twice of all their years living. It could be asking for directions to get somewhere, and you could have this attitude of, well, you Google it. And yet it could be our one opportunity to leave a positive mark and serve them. And I always want every single customer that we interact with to walk away feeling like they were glad that I came in. And we're absolutely here to serve. And, and customer service needs to be such a focus. Absolutely.
Tell us about, in our final minutes here, tell us about what's going on in Traverse City. This is about 16,000 people, I think, that live in the city, but there's this 4-county kind of metropolitan area that's like 150,000 plus. So, and this is far north Michigan. If you ever have the opportunity to fly into there and visit kind of these areas. Thank you, Benjamin, for sharing your life, your leadership journey, your insights. We are blessed today to have you on. The stories we share here on the Halting Winter Podcast remind us where government really lives, locally, right here in our cities, our counties, the communities that shape our everyday life. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share the episode to help these stories reach others. I'm Seth Winterhalter. You can find me at HaltingWinter.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.